Good morning, it's February 12th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. Well, the special counsel on Joe Biden has let him off the hook legally, but the report said what we've all been seeing and thinking. Another reason to have an age limit for both the Congress and the presidency. And this will also beg the question of how the Justice Department handles the situation. The special counsel recommended no charges, but it'll be up to Merrick Garland. Does he let Joe skate while still charging Donald Trump? If so, he's making the case for Trump that there are two standards of justice with this administration. And I don't want to hear this say, well, Joe cooperated, Trump didn't. Joe was warned multiple times while he was vice president not to be keeping classified information, and yet he kept it, and he had some from way back when he was in the Senate. How does that happen? So let's review the facts. The report made it clear that Joe Biden, quote, willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. These materials included 1, marked classified documents about military and foreign policy in Afghanistan, and 2, notebooks containing Mr. Biden's handwritten entries about issues of national security and foreign policy implicating sensitive, intelligence sources and methods, end quote. As I said, this has been going on for some time. From the report, it became evident that while as vice president, Biden was taking classified documents, and the executive secretary of the White House said, quote, raised concerns about the number of classified briefing books that Mr. Biden had not returned, and the fact that even when they were returned, some of the content was missing. Now, if you have any doubts about that, I suggest you read page 45 of the report. Joe Biden held an impromptu press conference on Thursday night after the report was made public and denied all the charges. He blamed everyone but himself because he's never responsible for anything that's negative. In this case, he blamed his staff, and I'm sure he wanted to blame Donald Trump. He claims the documents were in a secure place, under lock and key, and he never shared them with anyone. Joe, the report states very clearly that you're not being truthful, but then again, perhaps you've forgotten some of those details. I'm going to quote from the report. Also, during his 8 years as vice president, Mr. Biden regularly wrote notes by hand in notebooks. Some of those notes related to classified subjects, including the president's daily brief at National Security Council meetings, and some of the notes are themselves classified. After the vice presidency, Mr. Biden kept those classified notebooks in unsecured and unauthorized spaces at Virginia and Delaware homes and used some of the notebooks as reference material for a second memoir, Promise Me Dad, which was published in 2017. The report made it clear that he shared information, including classified information, from those notebooks with his ghostwriter. You do not think that Joe wrote the book himself, I'm sure. As to Joe not knowing he had these classified documents, I again refer to the report. Quote, Mr. Biden wrote in his 2007 and 2017 memoirs with the help of a ghostwriter in a recorded conversation with the ghostwriter in February 2017, about a month after he left office. Mr. Biden said while referencing his 2009 Thanksgiving memo that he had, quote, just found all the classified stuff downstairs. So that calls into question his statement that he did not know he had these documents since he discovered them there himself. It wasn't just staff putting them there. Robert Hur, the special counsel, then said he did not recommend charges because, quote, we have also considered that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview with him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with poor memory, end quote. The report also has some damning information vis-a-vis the Trump case. When asked about reports that former Trump had kept classified documents, Biden wondered how, quote, anyone could be that irresponsible, end quote. Another point to highlight from the report, quote, they're learning of the special counsel's appointment in this matter. Mr. Biden's ghostwriter deleted audio recordings he had created in his discussion with Mr. Biden during the writing of Mr. Biden's 2017 memoir. The recordings have significant evidentiary value, end quote. Now that's willful destruction of evidence, and yet they've decided not to prosecute the ghostwriter, Mark Zwonitzer. In my opinion, Joe Biden's in denial. His press conference was a disaster. Don't take my word for it. CNN has been a backer of Biden from day one and defended him at every turn. But after the press conference, they were not so kind. CNN's senior legal analyst, Eli Honig, responds to President Biden's conference, quote, that's what blew my mind about Joe Biden's statement. Two major things he just outright contradicts or is contradicted by, however you look at this report. Two things he said that are completely the opposite of what Robert Hur found. Who do you believe? It's up to the individual consumer. First, Biden says I did not act willfully. That means voluntarily, unintentionally. The second sentence of the summary says President Biden willfully retained classified materials. The facts in here showed it was willful. He knew. He talked about it. And he said, I did not disclose classified documents to my ghostwriter. Page 3 says that he did that. It says Mr. Biden shared information, including classified information, from those notebooks with his ghostwriter. End quote. That's from CNN and their legal analyst. And his ghostwriter confirms that he shared some of that information. Then there's the mixing up of the presidents of Mexico and Egypt. Put that in context with him claiming he spoke with Francois Mitterrand and Helmut Kohl at the G7 meeting, and both of them were dead at the time. Joe Biden's been lying to the American public from the start. You remember in his debate in 2020 when he said, quote, my son never made any money in China, end quote. He knew then it was not a true statement. He said he never discussed business with his son, Hunter, and now we know that was a false statement. Perhaps he never remembered these things because of his advanced age. But for Robert Hur to suggest that he would present himself as an elderly man with memory problems and create a sympathetic jury should also be reason that he's no longer fit to serve as president. This has sent Democrats and liberals, including those in the media, into a panic. They're seeing and being forced to admit what the public already sees in Joe Biden, that age has caught up to him. And like many elderly people, they know he is not all there when he needs to be. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.